A quick apology from editing Jessica because I'm editing this video and I'm tired of looking at myself fidget, but like I can't help it. This is the only place I could set up to film, and sitting on the floor is not comfortable for a long period of time, so I'm just moving a lot. I also just didn't feel comfortable in front of the camera. Anyway, whatever. I also was filming it at my parents' house while they weren't there, and I didn't know when they were going to come back, and so I just was antsy and moving. So if you notice that, I'm sorry, because I notice it.
Hey, hi, hello. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Jess, and here's the crazy thing. I pressed record before I was even prepared to record this video. If you can't tell, I'm in my home, my childhood home, and I have a small window of time while no one's here. I don't know when they're going to be coming back, and so I was like, press play or press record, bitch. We've got to record this video, and I'm not even ready. Okay, I just put together my list. So we're here to talk about the worst books of this year. Worst/most disappointed. I've read 52 books as of today, which is December 28th. I am currently in the middle of one. I don't think it's going to be worst, so I feel safe to record this. So I have 10. Also, I just got back from visiting with other family, and I have a tickle in my throat. And if I'm sick, I'm going to punch somebody. I don't know who. But let's not dilly-dally, because again, I could be disturbed at any moment, and they can't know. Okay, my number one, the worst. Now, number one is definitely number one. The rest, it's kind of a range, and I'll speak on more if I hated it/disappointed. I hated this book, and it was Problematic Summer Romance by Hazelwood. You should not be surprised. I have a video ranting about it. I said it was horrible. I think that Hazelwood's writing works best for me in the paranormal genre. I read Bride and I enjoyed it. I haven't read the second one, but her contemporary, I think I'm done. I hated that it was called Problematic Summer Romance because there's an age gap, and we just repeatedly remind the reader there's an age gap, and it's just like, it wasn't funny, it wasn't well done, it wasn't like, hey, yes, we have this age gap, but we have so many interests, and here's why it's not problematic, and here's why we're actually a good pair. It was just like, hey, you're an old geezer, hey, you're like super young, like nonstop. And I hated that. So if you want I give you some quotes in amounts of times that they mention age if you want to watch that full video. But it was absurd that it was like almost every page, either one of them are commenting on the age of the other one. Like, Allie, please. Also in that video, I'm like, sometimes people write sex scenes and I'm like, have y'all had sex? Is this what y'all really say? Because so cringy, so awkward, not a good time. Also, there was a book, was it Not in Love? And this is the second one. Granted, they're supposed to be separately, like standalone, and you don't need to read the first one. However, I do think you would benefit from reading the first one if you were going to read Problematic Summer Romance, because they share characters and there's a little bit of backstory there. So that's also just like a downside. I was like, it feels like I'm missing out on something here. But I don't recommend you read Problematic Summer Romance anyway. Never Let Me Go by Kazu Ishiguro. I feel like I'm butchering that name. I have never read anything by this author, heard of many of his books. I have seen this movie, but it's been so long, I don't really remember what happens. I just remember Andrew Garfield and Michelle Williams, maybe, and some kind of sci-fi thing, a boarding school. And I just felt this was so boring. So you don't want to say like, it was just such a disappointment, because I've just held, this is an author's name that I've held in high esteem, and I haven't even read any of his works, but when I've heard other people talk about his various books, they've just been praised. So I just thought this was going to be so good. And I guess you shouldn't judge a book by if it gets an adaptation. That doesn't have anything to do with the quality, but it really starts out with this person kind of recounting memories from when they were at this school. And I'm like, okay, we're eventually going to get out of like her looking back. And that was a lot of the story. And that was just not enjoyable. And just some of the things that happened, the purpose of the school that they were at, like it wasn't just like a regular school. What happens to them as they get older just felt, as for a person doing a lot of reflection, it was a girl. What do you mean you're looking back on this and you're not realizing this or that? I don't know. I was so bored by it. And it's made me, I have another, I think I own Never Let Me Go, and I also own What Remains of the Day or Remains of the Day. So I may read that one. I don't know. Hope's not high. That was dull. Now this next one, this is going to be a bit controversial because it's a memoir. I made a video. It's just on Patreon because I was like, is that a little mean to talk about a memoir on my channel? If you want to watch the video, then I'll link it below. But it's Told You So by Macy Neely. She, sorry, I'm all over the place. She is on the show on Hulu, Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. And she has had some tragic things happen to her. So she recounts them in this memoir. But for a memoir, for a story, I do not think it was well done. She needed a ghostwriter or a co-writer desperately. It was so poorly written, very much like I see spot, run. It was just so choppy. It really read like she was just reading her journal to us. And I'm not trying to downplay the strength that you have to be able to share these things, to share things from your journal. Not at all. But when you are writing a memoir, it is not only to recount your story, but to tell it, to tell a good story. And it was not. There's also, I think she's still pretty young. I feel like maybe she's 30, 31. And some of these big events happened to her like 18, 19, 20. So there has been time that has passed. However, I don't think she's done a lot of reflection and looking back at some of these things. This is not blaming her for things that have happened in her life, but it's usually in a memoir. What I'm looking for is, hey, these are the things that have happened at this time. I felt XYZ, which she did like once or twice, but for some other things, it was like, I don't think you've really sat with this and thought about why this happened, why you were treated that way, especially in references to her growing up as a Mormon. Going to BYU, why she was treated a certain way with her church family and with the school, because she makes it clear she's still in good standing with the Mormon church right now. And it's like, now she's a parent. So it'd have been interesting for any kind of reflection on how that affected her when she was growing up. And now is that the way she's going to raise her children? What way would she, how would she react to any of these things happen to her kids now that she's in the Mormon church? So I don't think there's a certain age you have to wait to write a memoir, but I don't think she's at the point where she was giving us a lot besides just recounting what happened. And again, that is a brave thing to share, but she had already shared a lot of that on social media slash the TV show. So it didn't feel like this was really giving much more, but putting it into book form. She also narrates it and does not do it any favor. She's not a good narrator. It feels so me, but again, of the story part of it, the craft of it, the writing, the audio presentation is not good. And so I have a lot more thoughts. Again, you can watch it on Patreon if you would like, because there's just, again, things from my opinion of being a person who has like watched the show, and then I've only watched the first season, seeing some of her TikToks and then listening to this audiobook. It was like, I just think there's some things missing here. It doesn't feel 100% authentic, or that you have really sat with some of the things that have happened to you. A lot of it in reference to Mormonism, but that's just me. That's my opinion. This is more of a disappointment, and that is Ship of Destiny by Robin Hobb. This is the last one in the Live Ship Trader trilogy. So we had Ship of Magic, Mad Ship, and now Ship of Destiny. Buddy read this with Robin, and I will say, to make a note, that I wish we had read it close together because we ended up forgetting a lot of things, so that's on us. However, again, I think that Robin Hobb is a good writer. I just don't know if her writing style and the way that she tells a story works for me. There are a lot of terrible people in this story, and from the moment of meeting them in Ship of Magic, I was praying for their downfall and waiting for them to be destroyed and to suffer endlessly. And I just want to say that I was not satisfied with the endings for majority of the characters in this story. It felt like I had read so much because they are very chunky books. And my problem it's a similar problem I have with Brandon Sanderson, is that they write these very long books. And then once we get to 50%, 60, 70% is when it really starts picking up. Not to say a book needs to be fast paced from page one, but sometimes it feels like, okay, you're giving me a lot that I didn't feel like I needed. And so it'll take me so long to get through the book. And then I get to like the last 25%. I'm like, oh, then I'm flying through it, but I feel fatigued by the time that I get there. But my disappointment really was how this concluded. There were so many, I won't say that I really liked anyone or was rooting for anyone, but there were some people I disliked less than I disliked others. And I just feel like I was not satisfied with the endings, whether good or bad. And I felt betrayed after all of those pages and all of the POVs and all of the bullshit that we've gone through with these characters, that this is how she decided to end it. So I'm not saying I'm never going to read another Robin Hobb. I'm taking a break because I didn't love the Assassin's Apprentice trilogy with Fitz. And the next series is the Tawny Man trilogy with Fitz. From the Live Strip Trader books, though, I was interested in the Rain Wild, and there's Rain Wild Chronicles, but those are some of the lowest rated ones in the realm of the Elderlings, so I don't know. So at the moment, I'm taking a break from Robin Hobb. I don't know if she's for me. I may try her again someday, but wow. To get through how many? Each book is almost 900 goddamn pages. So you mean I've gone through thousands of pages, and I get to the end, and these are the endings that you give me? I wanted to fight. I still do. It's on sight if I see that old lady. Oh, yet again, disappointment. Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. I have said multiple times in this channel, I have a mixed feelings about her. I have loved some of her books, Vicious and The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Others I have been found underwhelming, like the first Shades of Magic, Darker Shade of Magic. Also, was it Gallant, whatever that one was. So, and also Vengeful. I DNF that. But this one sounded promising. We have like vampires, lesbians. Okay. Because a lot of times I think I really do like her writing, but sometimes, again, the way the story is told doesn't always work for me. So this one felt like it could be good. It started out strong, but here's the thing that's hard for me, regardless of author, is when we have like generational stories. So in this one, we have like somebody, I can't remember, let's say from the 1800s, somebody from like the early 1900s, somebody from like present day. Always difficult. And I feel like the most interesting character was the one from the 1800s, and the later characters, I didn't feel as much for, and it just felt really slow. It felt like we had hints, dabblings. It was almost like a soda water. It felt like a flavor. It felt like a LaCroix, where here is the beverage and there is the concept of a scent walking behind it. That's how it felt. Like, yes, we have vampires, but we have this kind of moody, atmospheric story to start, but you don't really fully get that. It's not, I don't know how to explain it. It just didn't feel like she fully captured what she was looking to capture. And over time, it just started to feel dull. And again, I didn't feel connected to the later two. And so getting through those POVs would be kind of tiresome. And it just felt like we just got vibes and nothing else. Fumes, no substance. So it just felt like it was going on for way too long. And it just didn't hit like I thought it was going to. And it makes me really sad. I feel like my explanation was kind of vague, but it's just hard to explain because it's like the writing wasn't terrible. There was a lot of repetition. And it did start out stronger, but it just felt there's something I can't put my finger on that was missing. Like, I don't want to say it wasn't vampire-y enough, because I appreciate stories where they have something, a vampire, a fae, a werewolf, but it's, not the stereotypical story that we get. So it wasn't that. If you know how to explain, if you read it and you felt like it was missing something and you know exactly, please can you tell me in the comments so I can have that vocabulary, because I'm struggling to find the words, but I was just let down. Whew, another nonfiction. Now, this one I hated. Why Fish Don't Exist by Lulu Miller. I think that's her name. This is another one I have a video on that I ranted about, because this, I think, was one of my Patreon TBR jar picks that I read. I had seen the cover and was like, okay, this is going to be interesting. So originally, just hearing the title, I'm like, oh, okay, is it about fish? I think the subtitle is something about story about grief and life. And so, like, oh, okay, maybe this person is a biologist. I can't think of what the science of fish is called. And, there's going to be something about that in addition to this being a memoir. Okay. This was 70-80% biography of someone, 20% memoir. Again, video will be linked. You can watch the whole thing. But it was about this man. I can't even think of his name. This white man who was a taxonomist, and it was 80% his biography. And so she kind of ties that into her life, and like she was going through a breakup and how she kind of stumbled onto him and like learning about him and what that kind of taught her about life. And she really buries the lead about this man because he was terrible, and she just almost makes excuses for it. And it's not presented well in the case of, I was interested in this person, I started doing more research, I found out they did terrible things, they said terrible things, whatever, and like, okay, now I'm looking at them in a totally different light. Yes, they had important contributions to science, but you were a piece of shit. She does not do it like that. She's like, but like, that kind of was like of his time. Like, how would he, basically giving him a pass, like how would he know better? Or like maybe he just needed somebody to hold his hand and tell him it was wrong to be that way. Just pissed me off. And again, I was not interested in this man. And I don't think it was a well done, it's not a memoir. It's mostly a biography. And then you talk about yourself a little bit. And then some of the things that she did share about herself, I'm like, okay, therapy? You need therapy. Like, that book made me mad. It's very short, and I listened to the audio, but I just kept being like, okay, we're going to keep talking about this guy? What's the point? And the big summary of that book is that white people, and I don't need to say anything else before I get myself riled up again. Hated this one. The Irresistible Urge to Fall for Your Enemy by Brigitte Nielsen. I don't know, Brigitte, I wanted to say Nielsen. No, I can't think of her. Knightley. Brigitte Knightley. This is one of the controversial books of the year. You want to get loud and rowdy in the comments, don't waste your time, okay? But this is one that was not originally a fan fiction. They were a popular fan fiction author. They got a book deal. They wrote a duology. I think the second one comes out next year. Anyway, I got this from NetGalley, and it's marketed as like enemies to lovers, romantasy, yada, yada, yada. This book's a mess. This book is a mess. I'm like, was this edited at all? It's so strange. It feels like one story, but they didn't edit. And then they just found a really weird cutoff point where it wasn't even like an actual stopping point. And they're like, okay, let's split it here. And then we'll publish the second one. It was so weird how it ended. The characters were very flat. The story was Joel, like their whole concept is she's like this healer and he is an assassin, like good girl, bad guy. And her order, they're in these orders. Her order like hates his order, of course, but something's happening to him where he's like losing his powers. And her order needs money. He gives money to the order. So now she has to help him, trying to figure out like, what is this disease or what is it that's taking away his power? So they're constantly have to meet up. But it started to be repetitive after a while. It was like, okay, you meet up, they're trying something, doesn't work. Let's make another date. They meet up, try something, it doesn't work. Let's do it again. And just the world building was like non-existent. I was like, are we in the 1800s London? Are we in the night? Like, where are we? It wasn't really specific, but there was a lot of like words, verbiage that they would use in like the 1800s, but then there also was a lot of random French, and the story is not set in France. There's also a lot of words that were randomly capitalized, and just a lot of language that just didn't flow. You'd be having a regular conversation and then she just used this really big word. Like she typed a word and was like, I went to the thesaurus and like found the biggest one and just put it in there. I think I filmed a video. I think I only put it on Patreon because everyone was losing their mind on Threads and I just don't want to hear it. So that's there if you would like to read it with I think I probably share some quotes from the book with examples of the language, but it was just a mess. It's just like no clear world building. The magic system wasn't really well explained. The characters weren't very strong. And there is like, that's the central problem with him, but there is a secondary issue, like plot that comes up towards the end of the book. And I'm like, this should have been introduced way earlier. This would have been way more interesting. Obviously that sets up the second book, but still it could have been something they introduced earlier into the first book and continues into the second. The writing was just so choppy and weird. I also have a review on Goodreads that kind of goes through some of this stuff. And so it just wasn't good. It wasn't good. I love a slow burn, but to me, it was ice cold. It didn't feel like anything until like the end. And here's the thing about a slow burn. Slow burn to me doesn't mean like, slow burn to me is like sudden glances, like these slow, this fighting of the feelings and then like a slow recognition. And even when they recognize that they have feelings, there's like, maybe a brush of the hands of, a moment where they like hug and then they have to like startle back. They fall asleep. They wake up and they're like, oh my God, I fell asleep on you. Things like that. I felt like we got none of that till like the last maybe 10%. And then it's like over. So it didn't feel slow burn to me. It didn't feel like there was a burn. There was no gradual anything. It just was like, oh yeah, he's kind of attractive. Bam. The end. Ratchet. So of course I will not be reading the second one. The titles are also just ridiculously long, and I don't like that. Now, I was looking through my books I read this year, and I was so confused because I swore I read this one last year, but I guess 2025 has been that long because I read The Familiar this year. I wonder is that wrong? Well, we're going with it because that was, again, another one with like the premise. Like, how do you take this premise and you make it so dry? Because we have the Spanish Inquisition and we have vampires and familiars and magic, okay? Like religion and magic and vampirism. Like, what? And somebody's review of this was so funny, but it made me feel like maybe they're correct. And they said, I'm sorry, this is just not a comfortable position for me to be sitting, but I don't have any other option. So I'm sorry, I keep moving. But they were like, after reading The Familiar, I'm starting to wonder if Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom were ghost written. Honestly, same. I don't know. Leigh Bardugo is just not working for me anymore. So it just was dull. I didn't feel like any of the character work was that great. The story was, again, it was boring. And they're introduced this element of like a competition, which I'm not going to say I don't like. If it's done well and like the different events in the competition are interesting, the characters are interesting, things that are happening, but this one just wasn't. It just wasn't. It was a snooze fest. And I felt no chemistry between the people I should have felt chemistry between. And so I just was like, womp, womp, womp. And me and Leigh Bardugo, I think we have to break up. Like, unless her next book comes out, and someone who has similar feelings to me is like, oh my God, this is the Leigh Bardugo that we know is back. I'm just going to have to leave her alone because that was just a letdown. This is also a disappointment, and it's Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez, who I've read 3 previous books by that were all 5 stars. This is romance. This came out this year, and I was so excited, but this one was so weird. And it was like, okay, I know we're all online, and when you're writing a contemporary story, you're usually going to mention things that are happening in contemporary life. Okay, but I can only take so much of it. And this one was just like, Abby was writing a book, watching a TikTok, writing a book, watching a TikTok, because so many TikTok references in this story that was like, my God, Abby, got off of TikTok. And just the mentions and comparing the character to Resand. And did she say something else? I just, it felt so weird. Um, Also, there is, I feel like, in romance, when there are other plot lines included, it sometimes can be delicate or like a fine line, um, where that seems to overpower the story. And this one does have a parent with Alzheimer's, which is a real thing that a lot of people are, dealing with and having to witness their parents or grandparents going through. So I get it. It is, I feel like in the last couple of years, become more of a plot, like that's been more of a plot point in romances recently, again because it's realistic. But so that was a downer. And I'm not saying that romance can't have serious storylines, but it was like you're dealing with this super serious thing with the Alzheimer's. And it was was it her mom or her grandma, her mother, I think. And there's other stuff going on in their family. Their family's a mess. And then you have the romance kind of rom-commy part of her relationship. I don't know. It just didn't gel well together. And they also just, I won't say they didn't have any chemistry, but I almost was like, because they have to do long distance. And some of the story, I'm like, you know what? It actually would be better for you guys not to be together because y'all are stressing yourselves out, working yourselves to the bone. So it was one where I was not necessarily rooting for them because I'm like, this relationship, it does not look like it's doing y'all any favors. It's actually hurting you. So I was just let down. Am I going to read her next one? Yes. And we'll see. Hopefully that was a fluke, a one off, and hopefully return to the Abby Jimenez that I know and love, but we'll see. And then lastly, I have We Used to Live Here. My Goodreads review says, what the hell was this? Derogatory. I just did not enjoy this. I also think that listening to the audiobook did me a disservice, and I was listening to it while driving, which just small things that would annoy me was that in between chapters, the audiobook, so there would be like posts from basically a Reddit, and I hate that because they will read off every single thing. So it'd be like www, or it'd be like http semicolon backslash www.reddit.org/3, like it would read out the whole thing every time. And then reading conversations between people, like on the message board, it'd be like, Rad247 said, and Joanne75 loves cats said. And it was just so annoying. And then there also was like this noise that it would play. Like it would be like beep, 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 every time, that almost like, oh, I don't know, but it annoyed me. So those were just like small things from listening to the audiobook that I didn't like. But also I just was like, it started out like, ooh, this is kind of creepy. And it just did not go in any way that I felt. It just didn't. I don't remember. I did a video on it and I don't remember all of my thoughts. It just was like, once we got to the end, it was like, I don't even I don't even remember. I just know that I didn't like it, and you'll have to watch my video to figure out why. I can't get rid of this cough, and I'm starting to really worry that I did pick up germs. And so I'm going to wrap this up right now because talking is talking is making this worse. But just know that I thought We Used to Live Here was womp womp womp. And if you're going to read it, I do not recommend the audiobook. Maybe it would be scarier if you were reading the physical book. Maybe I missed something because some people tried to be like, no, you just didn't understand. Maybe I didn't because I don't even fucking remember now what happened. But oh well, I'm going to have to wrap this up. I'm so sorry. Those were the worst / most disappointing books of the year. I've read 52 books total, and it's been, again, not a stellar reading year. I did have some bangers, so you'll see that in my best of. But yeah, 2025, I'm both ready to leave it in the rear view, and also I've seen this said on TikTok. Also sad to go into 2026, as it will be I'll be going into a new year where Nigel doesn't exist. I lost him in March of this year, and so it's been a really long time, and not, because it's been almost It's been 9 months now, but it's like going into, I don't know why that matters, but it does feel wrong. It does feel wrong. So this year I am ready to close out, but it really also does hurt to know, to go into next year, my next birthday, which was also nice, Nigel's birthday, like we have the same birthday, won't be celebrated with him. So what a year. What a year. So let me know the worst books you read or most disappointing books you read this year. And then, of course, look out for best of. That'll be next, I think. I don't know. My life is chaos right now. So I'm just hanging on by maybe 2 threads. Maybe a thread, actually. So stay blessed, hydrate, and moisturize and sunscreen. Happy New Year. And, oh, I have to do a little plug that if you had a chaotic Christmas this year that was stressful, last minute shopping, stressing with family, driving, flying, home, and you want a different experience next year, I'm hosting a trip to Christmas markets in Munich, Germany, Salzburg, and Vienna, Austria. It's December 15th to 21st, 2026. And there are 6 spots left in the trip, and so I will link that down below again for you to have a different Christmas experience. And also you can do some Christmas shopping there at the Christmas markets because they have all sorts of things. It's so exciting. So all of the details, click on that link and it'll tell you everything, itinerary and cost. I am super stoked. You know, family time is great and all, but sometimes you just want to enjoy yourself. So if you want to treat yourself next Christmas, come with me. And then also, if maybe you don't want to do that, the Iceland trip still has 5 spots. That is at the end of September? End of September. So that one has 5 spots left. And again, link will be below. It'll have the itinerary and all of the information. I'm so pumped for both of those. Although I'm not trying to say 2026 will be my year. I am planning things to look forward to. So that always helps. Getting through rough times is when you have, especially a trip to look forward to. So if you would like to join me, claim your spot before they're gone. I'll see you in the next one.